How's it going, gurus? My name is Nick, and I am back here today to discuss one of my integrations called Incident Relations. You also may know it as FN Relations. If you used integrations before the app posts, you may also know it as parent-child relationships, as it's known within the app host as well. The reason that we're bringing this one up now is actually because I just released a new version, which I have deemed 2.0. You can see it is currently available on the App Exchange. It's down here as 2.0, just released. We are looking at this for the capability of creating artificial relationships between parent incidents and children. Now, the reason that I created this integration was actually because where I was working previously, we had certain problems that we wanted to track, and then we wanted to track the incidents that actually got created because of them. So we would create a parent incident, which was the problem itself, and then all of the children that were related to it for this. We can also use this for things like a large amount of phishing emails that have come in, maybe creating them all to link to one parent phishing email incident, or something to that effect as well, where you're going to want to create that relationship and maybe track them together. So this is how we're going to do this, is by using this integration. And some of the features for this, you may already know these if you've been using this for a while, but of course we have the first two here: the ability to assign a parent to a child, or the ability to remove that relation if you did not mean to add that, or if that relationship no longer is applicable. The next one is the ability to sync notes. Now, while this one has already been in the platform, there is an enhancement on this, and we'll discuss that in just a little bit. We also already had this capability, but it's the ability to actually track the children from the child data table, which is actually going to be stored on the parent incident. We'll discuss setting up your incidents and how to design your incidents in just a little bit. Some of the new features we've got. The first one is going to be your sync artifacts. This now gives you the ability to sync artifacts from the children to the parent, or the parent back down to the children, so that if you need to keep track of artifacts across the board, you can do that now. The next one is going to be the ability to copy tasks. Now, what this is specifically for is being able to create a task on the parent level and then actually push that down to the children, saying, as a parent, I need the children to complete this task. So that's a new feature that I've just added in this 2.0 version. Along with that, we have the ability to sync those notes that got created on that copied task back and forth between the parent and the children, so that we can track any of the handlings of those incidents. The next thing we've got here is the ability to sync data table data. Now, this is again a new feature. This will allow you to sync any of the data table data that you have, either row by row or as an entire data table itself, from using this integration here. And there will be a little snippet on this. You can see the note down here where if you want to actually add this as a new rule that will sync that data to the parent every time, or child, every time a new row is created in a certain data table, you can go ahead and do that. None of the rules or playbooks that I've created have that, because I would actually have to define the data table that we are syncing on here, and I don't have that. The last one, of course, was already in here as well. It was the ability to auto close any of those children incidents if they were still open when you close the parent as well. So, as you can see over here on the right-hand side for the contents, I actually have the old workflows and the rules to complete this, but you're not seeing the playbooks here. That's where I'm going to point you to actually go out to my GitHub down here at the very bottom of this. I separated those just in case you were specifically wanting to use the workflows, or maybe wanting to use the playbooks. You can install the playbooks if you're using playbooks. If you're not, then you don't have to have them cluttering up your system as well. So if we click this link here, it'll actually take us out to my GitHub here, where you can actually download each individual playbook, these res.z files. Or if you want to install all of the playbooks all in one go, you can download and install the res file. Now, if you are installing the res file, you will actually need to install incident relations before you install the res file. If you're doing that, after you install incident relations version 2.0, what you're going to do is you're going to go into the admin settings of your console, go to the organization, go to import settings, and then we're going to go ahead and hit the import settings here and actually add that res file in here, where it'll add all of those playbooks for you. Of course, if you're just importing each playbook individually, you can go out to the playbook section and actually add and import each one of those playbooks at a time. Here you can see I've already installed this app. It's already ready to use. We are good to go here. And it doesn't really take any kind of configuration. The configuration that it's going to be using is only to connect back to this platform here. All right, so from here, let's actually go ahead and talk about how you actually will set up your layouts. If we go to our customization settings and we go to our incident tabs, first things we're going to do is actually create an incident, child incidents tab. And we're actually going to set this up where it's only going to have the relations child incidents data table on it. Then in our manage tabs, what we're going to do is that will only be linked to any of the incidents that actually are a parent. This is going to allow us to actually track all of the children that are linked to that parent while you're in the parent. The next thing that we're going to do is in the summary section, we're going to have two additional sections that we're going to add here. First is going to be this one here, where we have the relation level. We are going to set this condition so that this section only will be displayed if it either has a parent relationship or a child relationship. It's got to have one of those, otherwise this section will not show. The next section is the one just below it. It's the parent ID. Now this one is going to be linked specifically to the child. This allows us to see that parent incident and actually click a link to take us directly to the parent if we have the permissions to, of course. All right, now that I've shown you how to set this up, now let's go ahead and dive into actually using the integration. So you can see here, I've got 4 incidents created. We're going to be using this one, obviously, as the parent, hence the reason I called it that. And then we're going to have the child 1, 2, and 3 as the children of that incident. What we'll do for that is actually select all 3 of the children, and then we'll perform an action to assign the parent incident. Now, what this is going to ask for is the parent incident that we're actually going to be using down here. So we're going to be using 2151. After we enter that in, we'll confirm it. And then what this is going to do is it's going to take all of those, or all 3 of these children, and it's going to associate it to this parent here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Up here at the top, you can see I've got all of the incidents opened here. You can see I've got the parent incident and both children. So let's go ahead and give the parent a refresh here. Now what you can see is on the right-hand side in that summary, it shows the relation level of this incident being parent. You can also see down here at the bottom that we've actually created a relationship in the related incidents down here. The way that we did that was by creating a new artifact type called related parent incident. And you can see we assigned that parent ID, which is the incident ID of this one, to this account and to all of the children, and then that way it creates that artificial link, the way that the platform itself uses to create those related incidents. The other thing that we did was over here, you can see we have a new tab called Child Incidents. This was that tab that we created earlier. Now in here, what we're going to do is we actually have all three of the children associated here. And we also have links to all three of the children here. So if I wanted to click on this link here, it'll actually take me straight to child incident 1. Now that we're in the child incident, some of the other things that we can see are things like the parent ID and child relationship are both showing up here. And same with this one, I have a link here that'll actually take me straight back to the parent. So you can see, again, now I'm back here on this parent incident. The other thing you can see, we don't have that tab because we're not a parent incident, so we're not tracking those incidents here. One of the other things that we have is actually the ability to not only just assign that incident to your parent incident, but we also have the ability to sync those notes. So out of the box, you can see that this one already has a couple of notes added to it. Now, this is where the enhancement is going to be for the syncing the notes from the child or the parent to the other, vice versa. What we're going to do here is before I would sync the notes individually. However, you can see here that we have the capability of actually taking a note and then actually responding to that note using the reply button here, almost creating a forum conversation on each incident. When this when this incident gets associated with the parent, these notes here that already exist on the child are automatically going to get synced over because we automatically sync any notes from the child over to the parent. But we don't do it vice versa because maybe not every single note from the parent is going to be needed on the children. So let's go ahead and take a look again at the parent. Here on the parent, we have in our notes, we can see that we already have the child notes synced over. And you can see here that I actually have it in that conversation form over here, where this note is the parent note of this. So you can see that slight indentation. So on both sides, both the child and the parent, we are actually tracking those as conversations as well. The other thing you can see is we're actually linked directly off of there. So if I wanted to click this and jump over to the child, I can click this. It'll take me straight to that child as well so that I can get further information if we're having a conversation with somebody. All right, from here, now where we're going to go is back to child 1, because let's say we made this relationship in error. We want to go ahead and remove this. So what we can actually do is we can click the actions button. We can actually click remove child relation. And then it's going to ask us if we want to remove the notes as well. So those sync notes that we had, we either have an option to remove them or not remove them. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and say remove just so you can see how that works. All right, now that this is done running, now what we'll do is we'll give this a quick refresh and we'll see what all has changed. First, you can see that up in the top right, that the relationship level is not there, as well as the parent's information is not there either. We can also see down here in the related incidents that there is no related incidents any longer. Now, if we jump over to the artifacts tab, you can see that the artifacts tab has been removed as well, and that's why we no longer have that relationship built there. So let's jump over to the parent and take a look. In the parent, if we give this one a refresh, you can see that it is no longer showing up in the related incidents because that artifact is gone. You can also see that all of the notes that were synced before are now gone as well because we decided to remove those notes. Now let's jump over to the child incidents tab here. Child incidents tab, you can see that child 1 is no longer listed in here as well. And that's because that relationship has been removed. All right, now let's go ahead and undo what we did and add that relationship back. All right, now that we've added that relationship back, let's go ahead and start seeing some of the other things that we can do. If we go into the artifacts, we can see here that we have a artifact called google.com. If I wanted to actually sync this down to all of the children, I could go ahead and click the action button over here and then find the sync artifact option right here from FN Relations. This is then going to take that DNS name that we have here, or whichever artifact you selected, and it's actually going to sync it to all of the children since we're doing it from the parent level. We'll be able to see now that that DNS name has synced down. Now, let's go ahead and jump over to child 3, where I have a few more artifacts that are created. We have this artifact here. Many of you may know it as Google's DNS. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to sync this up to the parent itself. So let's go ahead and do the exact same thing. We're going to sync the artifact again. And now this time, when it's finished syncing, what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the parent, where we can see that this is now updated and been pushed over here, and we're tracking that on both sides. But if we jump over into one of the children and give one of the children a refresh, that did not get synced from child to child. It only got synced from child to parent. All right, the next thing that I want to sync is maybe a user account. So we have these LDAP users. We want to push this up so that this can be tracked on the parent as well as the child. So what we can actually do is we can click our actions button up here. We can select sync data table to sync this information. From here, what we'll do is we'll select the data table that we want. Now, you can add these as a drop-down list if you're wanting to do that. What I did was just to fill in the blank, but this is going to take the API name of that data table. So for mine, it's going to be the LDAP users. The other thing that you can do, though, if you wanted to sync all of your data tables, as you can see here, you can just fill in all. If you just type in all, this will actually sync all of your data tables over all in one go. Now, if you're syncing all of your data tables, but maybe you've got one data table you don't want to sync, or maybe a couple of them you don't want to sync, but you've got a ton of data tables, you can actually go ahead and use the second row here to exclude certain data tables. But what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and use the LDAP users data table. And then we'll go ahead and execute. All right, now that we've synced that, let's jump back up to the parent and see what it looks like now. We can see here that that data table refreshed with that data table refreshed, we can see that information for Craig and for Daryl got synced over just fine. Now, let's go ahead and from the parent, let's go ahead and sync these users down to all of the children incidents. This time, I'll go ahead and use that all command that I did before. And if I wanted to leave something out, of course, I can do that, but I'm not going to this time. All right, now that this is done syncing, what we're going to see here is that all three of these should now be in every single incident. All of these incidents, or all of these users, have now been added to this incident. We can do the same thing in child 2. As we see here, all three exist. But in child 3, some of these already existed. Let's see how that worked. As you can see here in child 3, we still only have 3, even though two of those already existed. The reason being is because it checks to see if that row already exists, and if that row does already exist, then it doesn't copy that over. Next, let's take a look at the sending of a task down to the children. Here in the parent, I don't have any tasks listed, but I can add a new task here. I can give it a name. I can select any phase that I would like this to be in. We'll do enrichment and validation. I can also put a due date if I would like. And I can give them instructions of exactly what I want them to do. Then, after that, we can create this. Now, keep in mind, I'm creating a brand new task. If you wanted to push a task that was already in one of your playbooks or SOPs, you can, of course, do the exact same thing after that task has already been assigned. Now is when we're going to do that. We're going to click the actions button over here, and then we're going to say copy task to children. Now, once this finishes running, we'll be able to see this task listed on all of the children. Let's go take a look. Here in child 1, we can see that that task got synced down. We can also see that it pushed from a specific task, and this will allow us to keep track of that on both sides. When we click into this task, we can see that, like I said, the task name is at the top. The due date that we wanted to have this done by has also been selected here, and the instructions that I provided for them are also going to get synced down. The next thing that we're going to do is actually jump into the notes section for syncing notes. Now, both the notes section in this method as well as the root incident level notes work the same. Every time I create a new note on the child, it's going to automatically get pushed back up to the parent. But just because I create a note at the parent level does not mean that that's going to get synced down. So let's go ahead and start at the child. Let's create a note here. So we'll create this quick note here, just saying hello from the child. Now this is going to take this task note and actually go ahead and push it back up to the parent task note so that you can keep track on both sides. Now that we enter the parent task note, we can see that this note has been added here. Now, let's take a look at something over here. If I create a private note from the parent, there is not going to be a syncing that happens between the parent and the children. So if I were to jump into the child here, you can see I don't see a note added here. But if we go back to the parent and I create a response to that note, to sync this, we'll just click on our Actions tab over here and click the Respond to Child note. This will actually send that note to the child. On the child incident here, we can see that that note was created, but it was created at the root level because it was a response to a note that doesn't exist on any of the other incidents. If we go back to the parent and I respond to the note that the child gave here, this one, since we're actually responding to child 1, will only go to child 1 when we sync it. So, for instance, when I click on that same button to respond to child note, when this gets synced down, instead of it syncing to all of the children, it's only going to sync to that one child. So, for instance, we'll take a look here. We can see that that response came in here to the child's initial comment. But if I go over here to child 2 and I go into notes, we can see here that that note did not get synced over because it'll keep conversations with each child individually as well. Now, this is the same thing that will happen in the incident notes as well. So this functionality you'll actually see in both the task notes as it syncs it and the incident notes. All right, now, since we're in child 2, let's go ahead and say that child 2 ended up getting closed or the name changed or something like that. We can even do both. So first thing, we'll come over here and we'll change the name from child 2 to, let's say, child 4 now. Now what's going to happen, now that we've renamed this to child 4, if we jump back into the parent and we go to the child incident table here, we'll actually see here that the child 2 has now been renamed to child 4. Anything that changes in this data table on a child will change on this data table as well. So the name changed. Now let's check the status change. Back in child 2, well, technically child 4, let's go ahead and close this incident out. Now jumping back into the child 4 or child 2, whichever one we want to refer to this as, we can see that it's closed up here. So if we go back into the parent and we give this a quick refresh again, now we'll be able to see that child 4 has now been closed. So we've synced that data all the way across. But now let's say the parent gets closed. When the parent gets closed, any active children will actually get closed as well. So let's see how that works. All right, after that's been closed, then we'll jump back into the parent incident here. We can still see that they're open, but that's because there's still things going on in the back end. Let's go ahead and take a look at the children and see what they're looking like. If we jump back out here into child 1, we can see child 1 is now closed. And if we jump into child 3, we can see child 3 is also now closed. So now that that's happened, let's jump back into parent and see what parent looks like. Now we can see that all of the children are now closed and registered as such in here. All right, so now what we've covered today is the ability to use parent-child relationships to come in and actually create that artificial relationship between the two incidents, where we can track the children on the parent incident, and we can also see the association from the children. We've been able to sync notes both at the task level and the parent level back and forth to establish that communication and make sure that things are being tracked on both sides. We've also shown the ability to sync data table data back and forth, as well as the ability to sync artifacts back and forth as well. We've also shown the ability to keep track of the children incidents when they get closed, or close all of the children in one go by closing the parent incident as well. So I hope that you guys like this integration. I hope this has been doing wonders for you guys. If you guys are fairly new to actually using the integration, if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to drop a message down below, as I do want to hear from you. I do want to know what you guys are missing from this integration that it might need. And maybe I'll add one of those suggestions to a later update. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you guys have any videos that you guys are wanting to see, please feel free to drop that down below. And with all that said, we will see you gurus next time.